It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Concierge Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. Needed someone to understand.
Good morning and welcome to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. I'm Gene Sullivan.
And I'm Tony Crockett. How are you this fine Saturday morning?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm reminded of what someone said. Words, all they are words.
Yeah.
That's what you heard this last week.
I did hear that this week. I was trying to get the 10 pages of a lease from a new client, and I only got the last 2. And she said, "Well, the other pages, those are all just words."
Just words. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, good thing that it is now in your hands.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and it is so good to have you with us today, folks. We've got a lot of great stories that we're covering today on Where You Live. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. We're going to be talking about a court case earlier this week in Red Wing, where the Court of Appeals upheld and said that city inspectors are able to enter rental homes even without any evidence of code violations going on, and even if they don't have the landlord's permission. We're going to talk about that. Also, a little bit later on the show, for those living in homeowner associations, especially if you're on the board, don't be too hasty to just start slapping on fines, as you're going to hear a little bit later in the show. There was in New Jersey this last week, too, a homeowner association board, and it was upheld by the court that they ended up owing a homeowner a lot of money because they didn't really follow through procedures like they
kind
should
of
have.
did shoot first, aim later.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we've got that and so much more. But let's begin right now with property management in the news. Property management in the news is brought to you by Pest Control Services. When you need to get rid of unwanted pests in your home or rental property, call someone who's responsive, professional, and a proud member of Angie's List. Give owner Greg Keener a call at 952-894-9748, Pest Control Services. And our first story was the one we told you right off the bat here. Just this week in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, there was a headline that says, rental inspections upheld. It said the Court of Appeals upheld a Red Wing ordinance that lets inspectors enter rental homes even without evidence of code violations. Mm-hmm. Tony, have you heard of this before?
Well, as I read this article, I came to realize what they were talking about was routine licensing inspections that the city of Red Wing requires, and most cities that I work in the metro area require a routine rental inspection to get your rental license. In this case, they were questioning the ability or the issue, is it legal for inspectors when a landlord does not cooperate? Is it legal for them to still go ahead and enter that premises to do an inspection?
So in the city of Red Wing, what we're talking about is they had inspectors who wanted to get in, needed to get in periodically.
For a routine inspection.
Yeah. And people, if you own rental property, understand that,
sure,
that's
right.
a common occurrence. But they weren't getting the full cooperation of some people, so they were trying to get around that, and they said, well, we could go ahead and do this, because we have this right.
Well, they have an ordinance in Red Wing that says that they can enter without permission of the owner if they obtain an administrative search warrant first.
Yes, and one of the things I found interesting in this case here was that the appellate court upheld the city's ability to conduct these types of inspections, and they were asserting government's power to protect public health and safety in rental property.
Well, my first reaction to this story, as we discussed it this morning, Gene, was, okay, well, is this really a big deal? I mean, we all know that most ordinance and legislation regarding landlords and tenants is brought about by the actions of a few bad landlords, and we all suffer the consequences for that. So in this case, we all know there's going to be a yearly inspection. We all know that we have to get a rental license. So what's wrong? When the city is faced with a landlord that won't cooperate, is it so bad that they have something that they can use to get in and still inspect?
Well, that's a very, very good question. The first thing that came to my mind is I don't know if they have to go to those means. I mean, do you have? I don't like the idea of our government saying, well, for the case of the public good, that, and they end up expanding their powers. It doesn't seem like a very big thing to begin with.
With regard to this issue?
Yeah, with this issue. But to me, it seems a little bit like the frog in the pot of water. You put a frog in a pot of water and you start slowly heating up the pot. The understanding is that the frog isn't going to understand and is going to just finally end up being boiled.
He doesn't realize he's being slowly cooked.
Slowly cooked versus.
So you think we're being slowly cooked with things like this?
Well, it's a concern. It's a concern of mine on a couple of grounds. Number one, I do believe that the government does have a responsibility for what is called the common good.
Okay.
There are things like. We talked about it before the show, street lights, clean water, bridges, roadways, radio, TV, broadcasting follows, under the public good. So there's a number of things that I can see why the government needs to be involved. But I balance that with the other idea and the other notion that our founding fathers talked about, and that is that we have what's called a limited government. They talked about enumerated powers. These are specific. These were mentioned. These are numbered. They are finite. And I have a concern when we have a government that continues to grow and grow and grow, because the larger that government gets, I think the less power the individual has, and the less significance.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, it's the slippery slope. It's part of the stepping on the slippery slope, and once you start just accepting regulation without questioning it, then there's probably no end to it. And I have to say that regulations and legislation that regulate the landlord industry or the rental property industry is harming all of us. It's harming all the good landlords out there by making our job more difficult, more expensive to perform, and it's harming good renters because they're paying for the problems caused by bad renters.
Well, you bring up a good point. It's too bad that the actions of a few seem to have consequences on the many or the majority. Sometimes that can't be helped, but I can't wonder if there are not other ways of going around and getting the same thing accomplished.
Like these inspections in Red Wing, you mean?
Yes, And I just, I guess I'm just bothered by the idea of just willingly just giving expanded powers to our government, saying, well, it's no big deal because you can see the reason for this. And the example that's being used is that bad egg who tells you can't get in, so you don't know the condition of the home, and there could be something that is unsafe there. But that's not the way it is for a majority of the folks.
That's right.
I agree with that.
Well, and that's good. I'm glad.
Thank you, Miss President Obama.
Yeah, I'm glad that we have people that do. We hope that you do as well. I tell you, one thing we need to do, though, right now is we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about rental inspections and the ability for an inspector to go in without the owner's permission. Are there other things that could be done instead? We'll cover that after these messages.